Fringe Radio, your trusted source for the paranormal, conspiracy theory, and true crime.
Welcome, everybody, to Dark Fringe Radio. I'm your host, of course, Will Martinez. And today's guest, we have Christi Clemons Hoffman. And she is the host of the Real Life Angel Encounters podcast on the Mind, Body, Spirit FM network. She is also the host of the Radiate Wellness podcast, which is in its sixth year on the Mind, Body, Spirit FM network, and dedicated to bringing thought leaders, authors, practitioners, and inspirational guests to radiate light. Wellness, balance, creativity, and much more to an international audience. So obviously that's a huge task that she's undertaken. And, she's also the author of the internationally best-selling book, The Gap, Simple Steps to Reclaim Your Health and Reverse Most Chronic Illness. And I want to kind of get into that a little bit later. But tonight's real focus is, of course, her book, that she is coming out with. It's coming out now, what, June 24th? Is that the release date?
That's the UK release date. In the US, July 1st.
July 1st. Okay, perfect. So again, she is the author, the Real Life Angel Encounters book. And so we'll be talking about that here today. But of course, welcome our guest, Christi Clemons Hoffman. How are you, Christi?
I'm well, Will. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. So, Christi, let's jump into this right away. I mean, when I got the information about the book, I looked into it. I was like, this is great. This is something that really people don't talk about too much. It's not focused on enough, I don't think, you coming on Dark Fringe Radio, but talking about light things. That's, I know it's kind of a juxtaposition, but without the light, there can't be dark. And without dark, there can't be light, right?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, Christi, what brought you to, inspire you to write this book and come out with this whole thing?
A 2x4 upside the head, Will.
Yeah, literally, right? And figuratively and everything.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Spiritually. Right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
spiritual 2x4 upside the head. So, during COVID, this is like the second year of COVID. My angel tapped me on the shoulder and they said, darling, you've got to tell us, you got to talk to people about us. You got to let us know, let people know that there's hope out there, that we're with you and that there's nothing to fear and that everyone can have these miraculous encounters. And people just need to know about that. And I said, no, not right now. I've already got a podcast. I've got a busy group practice. I'm a single mom. No, I'm not going to do that. And they said, fine, that's okay. They waited a while, tapped me on the shoulder again and said, honey, you really need to do this. We need to talk to people. And I said, I've already done a series on YouTube. I did a series years ago called 52 Weeks of Angel Connections. And it was featuring every week. I talked about a different archangel or ascended master or different angels that are working with us. And I said, that's got to count for something, right? That's Absolutely. Good, right? And they said, no, it's got to be more. And so I put it on the back burner again. And they finally just said, Christi, darling, you've got to do this. And I felt the 2x4 upside the head. And I said, okay, that's great. But I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what I would do. And they suggested this format where real people contact me and tell their real stories. The point was that we all have these things that happen to us. The point is that we all have miracles in our lives. We just need to recognize it and we need to be cognizant of it and we need to be talking about it. So many of us are in our little silos. You know what I mean? We're with our friends, we're with our contacts. We might tell these amazing stories among ourselves, but we need to take it to the mainstream. We need to be talking about this so that we know there is an unending supply of help and assistance for us on the other side. And that you don't have to be Joan of Arc to have an angel reach out to you, that you don't have to be anybody special to have loved ones, ETs, angels, guides helping us. I mean, that's the whole point of this, is that we're not alone and there's so much more to us than we can possibly imagine.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think that's an important part to to obviously highlight in what you're doing here. And because again, that was the next question I was going to ask you. Were these encounters um, things that people brought to you, or did you solicit to people out there and say, "Hey, listen, let me know what your encounters were," or did they come to you?
Oh, it's a mixed bag. There are some
Mm,
who had heard the podcast and wrote to me because I always put the email address in the
yeah.
podcast and in the show notes. And then there's a link that you can submit stories to, and I put that in the show notes. And so there are some people who just reached out and said, "Hey, I've had this miraculous encounter and
Hmm.
I'd like to tell you about it." And there are some people that I'm just talking to. It's like, "Hey, did you know I got this podcast going on?" And they'd say, "Oh, well, I've got a story. I think it's a pretty good one." And
Mm,
then they would share those stories with me. Now, there are a few stories that are in the podcast, but also in the book that happened in the news. So
mm,
actual
okay.
news stories, actual things that, had been reported on. So there,
Mm.
it's just kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, as it was something that I always wondered. I was like, man, where did she get all this stuff from? I'm like, wow. But I could see, like, yeah, if you were to put that out there like that, and hey, and people are going to come back and say, hey, listen, this is what I've experienced. That's really profound. That's very, very profound. Very
I
profound.
think so. And there's people who are like, well, I'm as sensitive as a stone, I'm as
Mm,
intuitive as, a rock. But there's this one time this thing happened, right? So people will have these stories, even if they don't really believe what it is, or if they don't
hmm.
even consider it miraculous or a synchronicity, but they're like, there is this thing I just can't explain, but it was positive and it uplifted me so much that
Mm,
it seems like we all have these stories, no matter how brief, no matter how insignificant. I think we all have some sort of touched by an angel moment.
yeah. Christy, let me ask you a question. Let me ponder this to you. I mean, you have folks that have these, encounters and, things that, that nature, but does it matter if you are a believer in some type of religion or not? So, like, say, for instance, if you're an atheist and you don't believe in anything, right? You believe in which we die, that's it. There's no coming back, none of that stuff, afterlife, none of that, right? Does
Right?
that matter to the person? Like, can you still have those experiences and, be have that type of belief?
I get that question a lot, Will. And
Hmm.
I always think of Dr. Eben Alexander. I don't know if you've heard of him, but
Hmm.
he wrote the book Proof of Heaven.
Hmm.
He was a neurosurgeon and he had a near death experience. He got
Hmm.
meningitis. I can't remember if it was bacterial or viral, but he was in a coma for 7 days. And during that whole entire 7 days, he was in and out of a near death experience.
Hmm.
Before his near death experience, he was an atheist. After his near death experience, he could not help but recognize there was something going on there.
Hmm.
And though he's still not religious, he is spiritual and he knows that there's more going on. So, to answer your question, I think we can all have these experiences. Now, the thing is, if we don't believe in them, if we reject the idea that there are miracles that can happen, if we just staunchly dig in our heels and say, there's nothing out there, you die, lights off, end of story. Nothing's going to change your mindset about that. But these miraculous things and synchronicities and loved ones and ETs can come into our experience. And I believe that people can encounter these things and they may not recognize what's really at play. They may not
Hmm.
see or want to see the bigger picture, but that doesn't mean that these things aren't happening to us all the time. There's always things that we just can't explain.
Right. No, you're right. Absolutely. No, and it was, obviously it's a kind of a softball question, but it's a question that I'm sure everybody is, wondering too. Like, hey, listen, if you don't believe in this stuff, then can it really happen to you still? And you say yes. And I could see that. It makes perfect sense. Whether you believe in it or not doesn't mean it's not real, right?
Well, you don't have to believe in gravity, but
Right. But it works, right? Exactly. Let me ask you this, Christy. Since you've curated all these stories, have you found any common thread throughout these stories, these encounters with people and their angels and spirit guides?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. One common thread is that we all have these experiences. That's obvious. But another common thread is that these things will show up when we least expect it,
mm,
completely out of the blue. I think another common thread is that, you know, we all have times of need and we receive answers during those times of need. So
mm,
many of the stories, well, in fact, I would say all of the stories in the book and the podcast, there were times when we were distraught, we were in grief, we were
mhm,
feeling loss, we might be in danger. So these times of need are when our guides are on high alert. It's like, hey, Will's in trouble.
mhm,
What can we do to help? Now, they can't interfere with us, they can't take our free will, but they can encourage folks to get in touch with you or
mhm.
encourage things to move around you. So there's many things that can happen, but typically it's when we're in times of need. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Another thing that I was wondering, Christy, is, when people have NDEs, near-death experiences, how does that play into a lot of this, angel work, or, angel experiences? And, does a person become more sensitive to that, after they've had an NDE or maybe multiple NDEs?
Oh, I love that question.
Mm,
I love that question. Yeah, people have asked that before. It's like, are you more sensitive to these things after having an experience like that? And I
mhm,
think that can happen, that we are more, it's like, it's like you pop the seal, you break the seal on this, right? So you might be in a situation where you have one of these miraculous events where, you have this near death experience. And then all of a sudden you're just open to other things. It's like, wow, if this can happen, what else can happen?
mm,
If this is real, what else is real? So I
mhm,
do tend to think that that can happen. So yeah, and these near death experiences are very interesting because anyone who comes through these near death experiences, they're talking about the guides that were there to meet them. I mentioned Dr. Eben Alexander. He
mhm.
had a guide that was a female that just stayed with him the entire time. He was in and out of, I would call it la la land. He's in and out of la la land. And every time he's in La La Land, there
Yeah.
is a lady who turns out is a sister figure for him that is taking him under her wing and helping him understand what's going on and helping him heal. David Ditchfield is in the book and also in the podcast in season 1 of the podcast Real Life Angel Encounters. David Ditchfield talks about 3 angels that are with him in his near-death experience. They have him
Mm,
laid out on this stone slab, which was actually quite comfortable for when he says.
mhm.
And he had been famously drugged under a train in
Wow.
England. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty horrific.
Right? I can't
Yeah.
even imagine the horror that
Couldn't
he
even
must
imagine
have felt.
that. Yeah. A
Oh my
train?
gosh, a train. He
Much
was
less
seeing
a car, a train, right?
a tr-
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
a
Mhm.
train. So he's seeing his friend off at the train station. He's got one of these long duster type of coats, one of these long Australian type of coats,
Mhm.
the tail of which gets stuck in the door, and he gets pulled under the train.
My
Whew,
Lord.
for like 9 minutes
Oh
or
no.
not even that long, but it was, minutes long.
Right,
His
yeah.
arm was nearly severed clean off. Um, just had and lost a tremendous amount of blood, rushed to the hospital, had emergency surgery, did the whole 9 yards. But he had this experience and he describes beings that are with him. And then there's also the story of Susan Walter, who's in the book and the podcast, of course, because everything in the book came from the podcast.
Yeah.
But Susan Walter talks about 2 near-death experiences that she had as a child, age 4 and age 6.
Mhm.
And then she talked about the angels that were there with her then. So yeah, people can come out of these experiences. They're talking about their angels. Well, with Eben Alexander, well, with all 3 of them, Eben Alexander, David Ditchfield, Susan Walter, all of them talk about this music that is on the other side.
Mm.
Now, Dr. Alexander, he tried to go back to neurosurgery after his near-death experience, and he realized, yeah, this neurosurgery gig has been really good for me, but what I need to be doing is talking to people about the afterlife. We all need to know about this. I need to talk and educate people about the angels and the help we have on the other side, but also this incredible music that was healing and had this frequency that was, this vibrational healing type of frequency. So he's dedicated himself to afterlife education and recreating this music on the other side. David Field. I know, right? It's so cool.
Yeah, that's wild.
David Field came out of his near-death experience. He felt compelled to paint the angels that he saw on the other side. He felt like he had to depict these guys. And he also felt compelled to write music that he heard on the other side. He wrote a symphony. He had no experience. He knew maybe 3 chords and was in a punk band before his near-death experience. He's written a couple of symphonies now. This music that he heard on the other side. And Susan Walter, it was actually a reading that I did for her years ago when I first met Susan, and I had no idea about her near-death experience. But her angels said, hey, you need to be working with solfeggio frequencies. Did I know what a solfeggio frequency was? No idea. And I said, I hope this makes sense to you because it doesn't make sense to me. And she said, yeah, they've been talking to me about that. So the solfeggio is a series of notes or a harmony or something with music. And she's been working with her team ever since to put these frequencies into some sort of artistic way. So she's got coloring, she's got stickers, she's got paintings, all of these things, putting the solfeggio frequencies into art and like actually depicting them.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of that. I've heard of a pregio in music. Like that's a series of notes that I'm familiar with. Yeah, that's like the norm. That's normal. But I've never heard of that. That's different. I've never heard of that. That's interesting. I'm gonna really look into that. That's interesting because I'm really into music, and I think frequency has a lot to do with what happens here on Earth. Yeah, harnessing the frequency, positive frequency, I think is very important. I think, that's just an area that we have not even scratched the surface on at all whatsoever. Right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. And when we know how we feel when we're, listening to a symphony or we're, at a concert and we know how the music or just even playing music in your earbuds, how music affects us, how certain tones just can make us feel like we're soaring. Certain tones can just bring us down. Certain tones expand us. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
No, it is definitely. Well, you know what? I wanted to kind of focus on something real quick on yourself because you are also an intuitive. You're a channeler, a teacher, consultant, Reiki master. You're also certified as a level 3 quantum healing hypnotist technique developed by Dolores Cannon. How did that all come about? Is that just something that you had all your life, or was there an event that happened to you that maybe kind of sparked this all?
Well, now I grew up being an intuitive and I
Hmm.
didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that it was anything special. I knew that it made me the weird kid, so I didn't really talk about it growing up. Yeah, grew up in the suburbs of Kansas City, man.
Right. Yeah. That's
The
not
mean
something.
streets of Overland Park, Kansas. So
Oh, that's great.
I knew that I knew things and saw things and was interested in things that were different. I had no idea that it was special or that it had any significant meaning or that it could be used for anything positive, not that it was negative, but I didn't know that people
Hmm.
would be interested in that. And
Yeah.
then as I grew up, I just never lost that interest. And I always was looking at different things, meditation and I don't know, angels. And
Mm.
I growing up very interested in the spiritual and the unexplained,
Yeah.
both. I think they go hand in hand, right?
100%.
100%. And then fast forward as an adult, the bottom dropped out of my life. My marriage was falling apart and I was looking for meaning. And
Hmm.
I started Googling soulmate and karma and soul groups and all of these different things. And I found that all roads lead to Dolores Cannon. Dolores Cannon. I'm not sure if your
Oh
listeners are
yeah.
familiar.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. Oh
Dolores
yeah.
Cannon, a well-known metaphysician and
Hmm.
hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
And so I found out about her. I found out about this quantum healing hypnosis technique. I called the office in Arkansas where she was working out of. Now, Arkansas is about 5 hours away from Kansas City. And I thought,
Okay.
okay, I've got a little girl. My mom can stay at my house and watch my little girl for overnight. I go down to Arkansas. I have a session with Dolores. I drive back all in one weekend. I think that's going to work. So I call the office in Arkansas and I
Hmm.
said, hi, I want to schedule a past life regression with Dolores Cannon. And they said, well, she's booked up for the next 4 years. Did not
Wow,
know
wow,
he was
wow.
that big of
Yeah.
a deal.
Oh yeah. 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 Oh yeah.
He was a big deal. And they said, but if you're wanting to do something a little sooner, she started teaching people to use this method. Maybe you can find somebody near you who does this. So I did. And my husband and I both went to this guy, and neither one of us got very far with this technique. We didn't really have any profound experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And this practitioner said, well, it doesn't happen very much, but when it does, I have someone I can refer you to. And he referred me to a woman who does readings, an intuitive. And she answered questions about karma, about what was going on, about soulmates and everything else. She was wonderful. I sent my friends to her. They all had great experiences as well. Then she started teaching classes, and I started taking all of the classes that she was offering
Mm-hmm.
and learned what it was that I was experiencing and
Mm-hmm.
how to harness it, how to channel it, and how to use it for not only my benefit, but others. Started working with clients maybe 2010, maybe 2011, around that time. Started meeting more people in this realm and found out about energy healing. I had no idea what Reiki was. I'd never heard of it. Energy work, what the heck is that? And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, that's probably the next thing I need to learn. So did my Reiki 1, my Reiki 2. Probably a year or so later, I did my Reiki 3 and then my Reiki master.
Mm-hmm.
And all the time, the whole time, this idea of QHHT was in the back of my mind. So when I got laid off from my corporate job at Hallmark Cards, the headquarters is here in Kansas City. And it was my
Okay.
dream job. I'd always wanted to work at Hallmark.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was laid off with like 1,500 other people there at
Wow.
Hallmark in the creative division. But by then I knew that the corporate world was killing me. And I didn't want to do another corporate job, but they
It'll
had
suck the soul out of you.
sucked the
Yeah.
soul out of
Oh, it
you.
will. It will. I've been there. I've done it. Yeah, I know exactly.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about. You just like,
2 decades over 2 decades over in the corporate world. I know. Yeah.
yeah, same. I was
Yeah.
with a publishing company before that
Yeah.
for a long time. And just like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, it sucked the brains right out of your head. But part of the severance package is that I got to take entrepreneurial classes.
Mm.
And so I learned how to open a business and I started Radiate Wellness, which is a group holistic practice.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time that I started Radiate Wellness, the same week, this was insanity. I took the level 1 training for QHHT and became
Mm-hmm.
a QHHT practitioner the same week. I don't know what I was doing, taking a week off to go do this class while I was launching the business. But here we are. And the year after that, that was 2016. The year after that, I took my level 2 training. And then like 3-4 years later, I did my level 3.
Mm.
So yeah, I do readings, Reiki, and regression now. All of
Mm.
it goes together to help people know more about who they are, what their potential is, understand their connection to their higher self, and just know that they're more than what they think they are. That we're all
Mm.
multidimensional beings. And so all of the work that I do, all of it comes together to help people understand these mind-altering things.
Yeah. No, it's interesting you say that because I when I first got into getting into all this, like, past life regression and, hypnotherapy. I looked into all this stuff. And one book that stood out to me when I was younger was Many Lives, Many Masters. I don't know. Have you ever read that one?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that's a classic, right? I mean, in this genre, right? Yeah. So, I
Right.
mean, that book alone got me into it, and I was just like, "Wow!" So, do you believe that, like, there's people in our lives, like, that we encounter now that were maybe we've encountered in our life before, in our past lives?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I
Mm,
believe that we have a soul family that we travel with over and over
mhm.
again. We take turns being different roles to each other
Right.
and learning different things. I think of that. I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show Community.
Yes. Yes. Of course. Yeah.
Joel Hale and
Yeah.
Chase. So
Yeah.
it's a show about these people who meet in Spanish class. That's the first season. They meet in Spanish class and they come together
Right.
to study. And
Right.
then after that, every semester, they're all in different classes, but they come together to form this study group. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I feel like our soul family is.
Mm.
We have these study groups that we go lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, just helping each other to grow, learn, and have different experiences.
That's interesting. I like that. I like that parallel what you made there. That's great. That's a perfect, like I'd say, explanation to all that. It's really awesome. Um, Going back to the book, Christy, were there any of the stories that had like a profound effect on you that just made you say, "Oh my gosh"? I mean, geez, the story could only you couldn't make the story up. I mean, has there been any of those types of experiences for you from listening to all these stories?
Well, pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
Um, there's some that really stick out. Like there's the Cokeville miracle, which is in the chapter Angels in the News,
Hmm.
and the Joplin, the butterfly people of Joplin. That also sticks out. That's also Angels in the News.
Hmm.
Those are profound stories. But then there's one that came out of a QHHT session.
Hmm.
One of my hypnosis clients, because QHHT, if somebody's not familiar with QHHT, it's part past life regression, although this can be any lifetime. It doesn't have to strictly be past. It can be future or between. It can
Gotcha.
be alternate dimensions, etc. But then it's also part communicating with your higher self, channeling your soul, in other words.
Hmm.
So we can have profound, profound experiences in QHHT sessions. And this
Hmm.
client went to a lifetime in which she was a guardian angel.
Wow.
And that, oh, is so beautiful. So she's talking about seeing this boy who got burned in like a volcano explosion.
Hmm.
His his village was destroyed by this volcano. And he's somewhere in South America, Central America, something like that. And she follows him. You can tell that she's got a very close connection. Now, I think it took both of us, me and the client, a while to figure out what was going on.
Mm.
But it became clear to us that she was this non-physical being who was fully invested in this boy's well-being
Mm.
and healing him and guiding him and protecting him as he grew up. And she described various scenes of this boy's life. And she was always present, but she was never physical with him. She was just observing from above, from the corner, from beside him. She knew at all times what was going on with this kid, but he knew she was there, but he couldn't see her.
Hmm.
And others might have sensed that she was around, but nobody else could see her. And
Hmm.
so once we figured out what was going on, I started asking questions about, well, how does how does that work?
Right.
How do you heal this kid? And she talks about the ways that she heals her charges, right? And then I wanted to know what her training was like, how she learned to do all of this. And she guided me to the place where she had taken her training. And it was this big castle type of place. And there were all of these other beings who were learning how to do healing work and how to take care of the people they're assigned to. She talks about her teacher, her main teacher that was there.
Hmm.
And just the way that it works, that how they guide over people, how they watch over people. And it's not all people either. So she talked about the different types of beings that she could work with. And then when I asked, well, how do you feel about doing all of this? How do you feel about this kid and about this job that you do? And she goes, well, it's just a job. That's what I do. It's my job.
It's like breathing for her. Yeah, yeah. It's like nothing.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I do.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think that how do I phrase this? Do you think that those angels and guardians are with us 100% of the time, or do they come in and out? Is it something like like in the physical realm? Is the person at your house all the time, or are they, they come by every once in a while? Or, how does that work? What do you,
I believe that there is a team that's with us all the time.
okay.
So we've at least got our higher self, which is
Hmm.
our probably our first and foremost guide that works with us. So the
Hmm.
part that is non-physical, our soul, some people would
Hmm.
call it that. So there's that aspect, but there's
Hmm.
also our guardian angel who's with us from birth to death. They're typically contracted to be with us. They're
Hmm.
typically there by agreement and arrangement that we have made with them before we were born. That they help us with healing, with teaching, with protection, many things. Then we also have an archangel who's with us from birth to death.
Hmm.
And then I believe that there are other guides that might be assigned to us to be with us throughout our lifetime. That happens as well. We've got a joy guide with us. They're typically with us most of our life. But then we've also got other guides that may come and go as we need them. This is
Hmm.
especially true of ascended masters because ascended masters, much like archangels, all have a job that they do, a specific job that they do.
Right.
And so we can call on them. We can call on anybody, an ascended master, um, an archangel. We can call on just any guide. We can just put out the call. Hey, I need a guide for this. And they can come in and help us with different things. And there might be those who just step forward. Hey, Will's going to be going through some stuff. We need to gather around and
Hmm.
guide him through this next thing that he's doing. Right.
Hmm.
We can have beings that come in and out as we need them, but we can also call in anybody that we want. I
Hmm.
think that old commercial, I think it was Apple, um, back in the early days of cell phones, there was a commercial that said, there's an app for that. And I think
Yeah.
there's a guide for that.
That's a perfect explanation. Yeah, there you go. There's a guide for that. That's great. I like that.
Guide for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there literally is. You need to get directions to go someplace, ask a guide to help you figure it out. You need to figure out what to make for dinner. There's a guide that can help you with that. You need to figure out a
Oh, I need
relationship.
that one. That's the one I need
You
right
need that
there.
one?
Yeah, I need that one because I'm tired of hearing, "Oh, I don't know," from the wife. I don't know.
What do you
Whatever you
want?
want.
What do
Yeah,
you
what do you
want?
want? Whatever you want.
What do you
My God,
want?
I asked you the question.
Come
Don't deflect.
on. Help me out
I need
here.
that one. That's the one I need.
Well, Julia Child is on the other side. I'm just
Oh
saying,
yeah, there you go.
totally call in Julia Child and say,
There you go.
what do I need to make for dinner?
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. Um, Christy, what do you say to people that are, skeptical of this? And they say, "Oh, is this something that's just you say is an angel thing, but maybe it's just consequential, it's whatever. It's just life. You got through it. Whatever. What do you say to those people that are skeptical in that nature?"
It's totally fine. I don't insist that anybody believe any of this stuff.
Right.
As I kind of jokingly said, that we don't have to believe in gravity in order for
Hmm.
it to work for us, right? We
Right.
don't have to
Absolutely.
believe in these other things. And I am all about meeting people where they are. If they are on board with this stuff, great. If they're not, I'm more than willing to meet you where you are and where you feel comfortable in this.
Hmm.
So, all of us have synchronicities, we have
Hmm.
coincidences, we have things that happen, we have near misses. We'll be thinking of somebody and then they call us. We all have these things happen. And I keep coming back to this quote. I can't remember who said it. It's in the book. Properly attributed, I might add,
There you
but
go.
I'm remembering it right now. This quote that says, you can go about life thinking that everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle.
Mm.
I'm of the camp, why not think of this as special. Why not think of this as an angel visit or a miracle, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no harm in that at all. But if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's skeptical, I totally get it. That's fine. And there are people that will approach me and just say, I don't really believe any of this, but there was that
But
one time,
but
right?
right.
But
The but. Yeah, it's crazy that you say that. Yes, you're absolutely right. There's those types of people as well. They'll say that they're like, I don't believe in any of this, but yeah, this happened to me one time. But yeah, it's interesting when people how everyone's different obviously, and they want to interpret their things the way they want to, and I can understand that. But sometimes it's just like, come on, dummy. How many times does this have to happen to you for you before you say, hey, this is maybe a little bit more divine? Because let me tell you right now, I've had two near-death experiences in my life. I've come out of situations that I should have not have come out from. Those two in particular, but even events after the fact, where I was like, something told me not to go to over there. Something told me to go this way. Something told me to go that way, and I did it. And I'm a true believer of following your gut. I think that may be like the angel way of coming through to you physically. Was like when you have that feeling in your stomach, you're like, you know what? I don't know, man. I don't. You know what? I shouldn't go out in the car at this time of night. It's 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. My mom always said nothing good happens after midnight. You know what I mean? You just get that thing, and then you find out there was a big accident that happened right down the road from your house. You know what I mean? It's like could have been you. You know what I mean?
hey, there's a story in the book, well, and on the podcast too, of course. This woman, Sherry, she's
Mm,
driving down this road outside of Kansas City, and her dad always told her, stay in the right-hand lane. If you need to pass, go to the left, but then get right back over to the right-hand lane. Always drive on the right.
mm,
Then she's on this, and it's dark. It's late at night. I don't think it's quite midnight to follow
mm.
your analogy, but uh, it's dark, and this highway, it's a small highway, not very well lit, right? And kind of
Mm.
windy. And she hears this voice in the back of her head saying, get over to the left. She's like, what? Get over to the left now, do it. And so she's like, okay. And she goes over to the left. She's thinking, why am I doing this? But she heard this voice when she had never heard this voice before. And all of a sudden she's like, okay, I'll do it. And then here comes a bicyclist the other way. She
Wow.
would have hit this guy. And
Mm,
that would have been a bad night for both of them.
mm, mm-hmm,
And so, we can have those things, even like I said, even if we're not a believer, that can happen,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it's gotten me out of trouble more than a handful of times. And I'm so glad that I just listened to my instinct and listened to whatever was talking to me. And I said, you know what? All right, I'm not gonna force myself against this. I'm gonna just go with it. And thank God I did. Let me ask you this: were there any challenging parts to writing this book? I mean, or this pretty much wrote itself, right? At the end of the day, with all these experiences, right?
Pretty much. I mean, I think that just selecting which stories would go in and which would
Yeah.
not, there
Mm,
were still so many, this could have been a much longer book. And the next book, because I do anticipate this being a series, the next book's going to be much longer because I realized there are more stories that I can put into a book.
mm,
That was probably the biggest challenge. And then I did group them kind of by category, by chapter. So there's a
mm,
chapter on um, mysterious things that kind of outside of categories. um Good Samaritans showing up. Gosh, there's the angels in the news section
mhm,
as well,
mhm.
chapter as well. So yeah, just grouping them by kind of themes, that was maybe
Yeah.
the most challenging.
Yeah, I remember the one story about the woman who picked up the car that was on top of her child. And that happened, I think, in the 80s or 90s. But
Right.
they always said, oh, it was adrenaline that was going through her body. I was like, I don't care how much adrenaline that you had going through your body, but you're not going to pick up a 15-ton car, especially at that time. It was all steel. We were not talking about the cars of now, off of their child. You know what I mean? I remember that story, and I'm like, yeah, you can try to explain that with science all you want, but there's there's some divine intervention that's going on in that situation. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a story fairly recently this spring in the podcast where this woman was talking about she and her sister and brother-in-law were coming back from a camping trip, and they were just missing their mom because the mom had died not too long before that. And they're just, talking about their memories and how much they miss her and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're in the truck, and they had a trailer on with their camping equipment. And then the trucks kind of started wobbling, and then the trailer just flew off of the truck and went down the highway.
Oh,
And
no.
so, oh my gosh, pulled over. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I mean, luckily it didn't hit anybody. My gosh, that could have been bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then this guy comes along. He's, just pulls up and he says, "Hey, you look like you're in trouble here. What can I do? What's going on?" And they said, "Oh my God, the trailer just popped off and flew down the highway." He says, I'll help. And he gets the trailer, he brings the trailer back, lifts the truck up, puts the trailer underneath it, puts the truck on top of the trailer.
Who does that? Yeah, the Hulk.
Who does that?
Yeah. That's ridiculous. Yeah.
But the kicker is, these people are like, "Wow, that's great. Thank you. We were so lucky that you happened to be here at the right time." And he says, "Oh, I was just coming down to see the horsies." Well, who uses the word horsies? Well, the mom did. The mom that had passed, that they were missing, and they were talking about, always call them horsies.
Wow.
So did she send this guy? Probably so.
Wild.
Or maybe an angel, or I don't know, something, but it seemed connected somehow.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. Like it's so crazy. Christy, a couple questions for you before we, let you go. One question I wanted to ask you is this, the ones that want to maybe kind of harness this intuition and kind of maybe, figure out how they can kind of, hone their skills or maybe even be able to contact their spirit guides or angels or whatever it may be. What can like just a layman person do to like just get started on something like that? Because there's going to be a lot of people that are listening to this who are going to be like, okay, I want to do this, but how do I start?
How do I start? Absolutely. Well, first of all, I think belief really helps. Faith
Mm-hmm.
really helps. Trusting that, yeah, I can have these experiences too. I don't have to be anybody special. I don't have to be Joan of Arc. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to have any special skill to have these things happen to us. And so that belief, that willingness to have these experiences, there are some things that can help, such as meditation can help, just to learn how to clear the mind, how to clear the spirit. Okay. Doesn't hurt. Certainly, there are no ill side effects from meditation, only benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But then also just knowing that we can talk to our guides at any time. Any of us can do this. It's just as simple as talking, me and you.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even have to speak with words. We can just think it in our mind. Hey, I could really use some help with this. One of my favorite things to do is to talk to my joy guide. Her name is Lucy. That's the first guide I ever met. And her entire job is to make me smile. And so sometimes I'll just say, "Hey, Lucy, send me 3 gifts today. I don't care what it is, but give me an excuse to smile." And then just wait. So we can set it and forget it. Talk to our guides, talk to our loved ones, talk to our angels, put the request out there, and then see what shows up. It could take a while, few minutes, few hours, few days. Keep your eyes and ears open. Be aware of what shows up. Maybe you're driving down the road, the same road that you take to work every day, and then all of a sudden there's a different billboard on the side of the road that is an answer for you. Or maybe you turn on the radio and here's a song that was a favorite of somebody that you're missing.
Right.
Never know how these things are going to come up. Keep an open mind. Those are my biggest tips for that.
Keep an open mind. Listen, I think that's great advice. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you're closed minded and just have the blinders on, you're not going to open yourself up to anything or allow anything else to help you. That's the difficult part of it. One last question I wanted to ask you, in today's world, there's like a lot of fear and division that's going on right now in the world, what do you think our angels or spirit guides or encounters are, how can they help us through this time as well?
I love that question. And I think that's why they started tapping me on the shoulder
Mm,
a few years ago, is because
yeah.
we need to have hope, and we need to know that we're not alone. We're in partnership with beings that are much smarter than us,
Hmm.
much more expanded than we are, and have a much bigger view of everything than we do. We have to know that everything we're seeing here and now, all the division, all of the strife that we're seeing around us, we have to know that there's more, and it's not just what we see and feel and know, but there are bigger things at play, and we need to be aware of that. We need to know that we've got guides with us that can help us and that want to help us, that they continue their path through helping and assisting us. And so I think it's useful at times like this, that we know that we're much more than we think we are, and we've got unending streams of help available to us.
Mm. That's a wonderful message. I think that it's something I wanted to kind of touch on because a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff right now, and it's very hard in this day and age. Of course, what's going on in every aspect of the world. So I just wars going on and things like that. It's just horrible. You hate to see stuff like that, and you just want people to kind of have a better life and a better experience in life. And not having to worry about stuff like that. So, no, Christy, listen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast again. Your book, Real Life Angel Encounters, I mean, it'll be out July 1st, as you said, here in the States, and coming out June 24th, I believe you said, in the UK. And we'll be posting links here on the bottom of the show here, and then, of course, in the description, so that you folks can go there and check it out. Any last words for us, Christy, before I let you go?
Absolutely. Please listen to Real Life Angel Encounters wherever you get your podcast, as well as Radiate Wellness Podcast wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. And then the book is available for pre-order now. You don't have to wait until July 1st. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but we don't have to wait till July 1st. Pre-order the book now. It will be in your hot little hands as soon as it's off the press. Another thing is that please visit my website, which is radiatewellnesscommunity.com. And then I've got just one more thing I'd love to promote.
Please.
Thank you so much. I'm in a docu-series called Journeys into the Soul. Journeys into the Soul is about different forms of hypnotherapy, but the spiritual metaphysical type of hypnosis. And filmmaker David Marsh has gone around the world, literally around the world, and every episode is featuring a different practitioner somewhere in the world, the UK, Australia, throughout the US, Europe, many, many places. And I am in season 2 of Journeys into the Soul. The premiere of that whole season is Saturday, June 14th. And that will be available at journeysintothesoul.com for pay-per-view. You can download the whole series and season 1 as well. And then it'll also be on Gaia. So if you've got a Gaia subscription, go out and season 1 and season 2 will not be far behind.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I think this will be out the same day your show will premiere. So on the 14th. So it'll be very synchronistic there in that aspect. So awesome. Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna get this out on that date. So no, listen, Chrissy, thank you for coming on the podcast. You have been a delight. You've really have opened up my eyes on this whole, angel, experience phenomena, and I love what you're doing. I implore you to keep doing it because I think, like we said earlier in the podcast at the beginning, this is a subject matter that a lot of people just don't talk about, and I don't know for what reason, whatever it may be, it doesn't get enough attention. But I think that you are doing a great job of, putting a spotlight on that. So I really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Oh, thank you, William. I appreciate any and all opportunities to talk about angels because I think it's important. And I love what you're doing with this podcast. Keep spreading the word, keep shining that light, even in the darkness.
Thank you. And listen, I'd be more than happy to come on your podcast to talk to you about those 2 NDEs that I've had in my life. So we can get into that.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've talked about it on the podcast here many times. People are probably like nauseating with it because I didn't even want to get into it, but that's why I didn't even mention too much about it. I've probably said the stories too many times, but I would be more than happy to come on and talk to you about that and the profound, yeah, and then the events after, the getting out of a lot of issues by listening to my spirit guides, and I do believe that they were angels that were guiding me, through that time. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that. Again, Christy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. and we'll have you on again, especially after your next project, because I know you're going to come out with something else. It's not, this is not the end of you. You have more things that your guides are telling you to do. I'm sure they are. So again, we're going to have you back on in the future. Thank you so much, Christi.
Love that. Thank you, Will. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.